It is another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the 4 films to wrap up March of 2008. Let's just get right to it. Let's start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and one that you wouldn't think would be a surprise success, but at the time, it was a pretty big deal that this movie did as well as it did. Let's talk about the movie 21. I don't know about you, but I find it kind of hilarious that they keep bringing up from the author of Bringing Down the House. Like, I keep thinking it's the 2003 Steve Martin Queen Latifah movie, but no, it is not that. Even though this book did come out the very same year that movie did, so take that for what you will. But as you can tell from the trailer, there it was inspired by real events and real people. It's about 6 MIT students who become trained to be experts in card counting and blackjack, and subsequently take Vegas casinos for millions in winnings. And like I said before, this was a movie that not a lot of people were expecting to be a big success. Even though you did have a 2-time Oscar winner in Kevin Spacey, who was still well respected at the time. You had Kate Bosworth, who everybody really enjoyed. Jim Sturgis was coming up in the world after Across the Universe. The director Robert Luketic was the same guy that did Legally Blonde and Monster-in-Law, both box office hits. So I guess in a way it was sort of on paper, yeah, it seems like a film that should have easily been a box office success, but yeah, there were a lot of people who thought that Horton Hears a Who was easily going to take this one over this weekend at the box office, and this thing ended up being the #1 movie for 2 weeks after this came out. So there was a lot of people who were invested in this film. I don't know if it was because of the stars or maybe it was just because of the idea. I should also mention that this same writer who wrote this also led to the inspiration for The Social Network and Dumb Money, both very good movies, especially The Social Network, even though Dumb Money is a criminally underrated film that came out a couple years ago. But as far as this film goes, it's alright. I mean, it's a pretty good concept overall, seeing these 6 MIT students using their brains and their mathematical abilities to, try to basically screw over the casinos. And of course, when you have Lawrence Fishburne as one of the security guards there, and he's literally beating you up for trying to beat the system, yeah, you get invested by that type of stuff here. You really don't know where exactly it's going to go. It really took me by surprise of the direction that it went. I like the direction that it went. I like the fact that it didn't need to go down that route of, let's do this thing that we've seen done to death before so many times in the past. But no, they do something different with it, and it works very well. It's a very engaging film. You do get invested with the leads in this. Kevin Spacey's really good in here. Lawrence Fishburne's really good. The MIT students in here range from pretty good actors all across the board. You got Aaron Yo, Liza Lapira, who of course have had a really good year with Inside Out 2 and The Equalizer. Josh Gad, you see in the trailer there too. That's one of his early film roles, one of the ones I first saw him in. But for the most part, it's a good movie. Is it a great film? No. I think there's definitely a lot more you could do with it to kind of make it stand out more on its own and not feel like an Ocean's clone, but it does a pretty good job overall of giving you what you want and then some. I think it works very well for what it is. I think it's a very entertaining film. It's worth checking out. 21. So with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, and that is David Zucker's superhero movie. And that right there is why David Zucker will always beat out Freeberg and Seltzer any day of the week. This is how you do a parody movie instead of just making a movie where you're making references all across the board. But no, this film is exactly what I want to see. Like, yeah, it's not the best of these movies. It's no Naked Gun. It's no Airplane. But you know what? An older David Zucker, nearly 30 years after the original Airplane, is still way funnier than anything that comes out of Jason Freeberg and Aaron Seltzer. This is obviously a spoof of the superhero genre, primarily Spider-Man, and also a little bit of Batman Begins, but you also have a lot of mid-2000s Marvel movies like Fantastic Four and X-Men The Last Stand, and it falls in the same vein as the Scary Movie series of comedies, where the humor here is mostly focusing on the superhero movie aspects, but every once in a while you get a little bit of some modern references too. But unlike something like Meet the Spartans, it's not just completely in your face and it's doing it for the sake of just doing it. No, they're doing it for the reasons that a movie like this should do. Like there's purpose for them to be in this movie, and they're not just, here's this thing right here. You remember this? No, there actually is a point to it, and that most of the time it can be really funny. And there are times in this when this is really, really funny. This is a very entertaining film. Like I said, it's not a classic by any means necessary, but this is the type of spoof comedy that I go to see these movies for. The Zucker brothers, it's the Zucker brothers is always going to entertain me no matter what. This is a film that is just very entertaining all across the board, and it also helps if you have a good is that even though they're not the main writers on here, but they're still working behind the scenes on the film. This is done by Craig Mazin, who has of course gone on to do the Hangover movies. He's done Chernobyl, The Last of Us, so he has gone on to have a legitimately good career since this movie's come out. But even then, this is still a really funny movie. I really enjoy the silliness of it. I really enjoy the ridiculousness of it. It is such a good, fun film all across the board. It's so stupid and ridiculous, but I love it. But I love it, man. I almost said I love every minute of it. Well, I don't love every minute of it. Yeah, some jokes do go on a little bit too long, but I mean, how can you go wrong with a movie like this? If you grew up with the airplane movies and the Naked Gun movies, this should be right up your alley. And I grew up with those movies. It is definitely a film that is what I think of when I think of spoof movies. Like this is a rare commodity nowadays, because when you think of movies like when you think of spoof films nowadays, but especially at this time, it was always what Freeberg and Seltzer called spoof films, and that was not that. And this is good fun. This is a really good fun movie. I enjoy it a lot. It's what I want to see from a good spoof movie. Yeah, like I said, it's no Airplane, it's no Naked Gun, but I will gladly take this over anything from Freeberg and Seltzer any effing day of the week. No question about that. So with that said, let us move on to no, not another comedy, not yet at least, but this is definitely not a comedy, but we have Channing Tatum and Ryan Felipe starring in the war drama Stop Loss. So yeah, this is another one of those Iraq war dramas that we were getting a lot of around this time. We certainly got a lot of the lesser ones in 2007. We got, Lions for Lambs, Rendition. The year before that, we had Home of the Brave. We're starting to get into some of the other ones that are coming up later on in the second half of this cycle that we were in, such as The Messenger, which actually turned out to be a pretty good movie. But Stop Loss is a film that features you have these young soldiers who experience the Iraq War, and they are psychologically shattered, and so it's kind of like post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm literally reading it right here, but the title, of course, references the government's controversial stop-loss policy, which allows the government to extend the term of duty of soldiers who have already served their contracted numbers of years in service, and that's exactly what happens to these characters in this movie, with Ryan Felipe, Channing Tatum, Abby Cornish, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. This is one I honestly forgot about. I forgot Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in this movie, and just shows what a great track record he's going to have going forward. Because that's another one of those people that whenever I see him in a movie, it's just like I gotta see it, man, because he's in it. But you also have Kieran Hines, Timothy Oliphant. I mean, a lot of good talent in this movie. This is directed by the same person that also did Boys Don't Cry, which was another really good movie with, of course, when Hillary swanked the Oscar back in '99. And this one didn't do so well, and I think it was mostly because of the fact that people were starting to get tired of the Iraq War fatigue. I mean, that was one of the big things during this time period. Everybody was just kind of like, okay, we've been in this war now for 7 years, and it seems like we haven't gotten anywhere with it. And of course, we wouldn't get out of it for another until 20 years after we first entered it. So that should tell you how we were getting kind of sick and tired of this. But I think mostly people were sick and tired of it because they didn't feel like the film was really doing much that we hadn't seen done before. We would get some movies later on down the road, like The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, that I feel like we're trying to do the war thing much better, and did it very well, and they made great films out of it. But this is not a bad movie. This is a film where I think the actors really are making it more than what it needs to be. Ryan Felipe is very good in here. You believe these characters. You believe the struggles they're going through. They don't want to go back to this. They've already served their tour of duty. They should be done at this point, but because of this thing that was going on, they have no choice but to go back in. You have this guy that's fighting to try to avoid that, and it's a really engaging film overall. It's a really effective film that works very well. Yeah, it's tough to sit through for some people, but it's worth it to get a really good story out of this. It's a very underrated film. It's a film I do recommend checking out, especially for these great performances overall. The performances, I think, really are the ones that carry the load, that make it something that should be something that definitely deserves to be seen. It's one you should definitely check out. Stop Loss, highly recommended. A really underrated film. So with that said, on to the last film we have here, and that is Simon Pegg in Run, Fat Boy, Run. I mean, technically, the movie should really be called Run Slightly Obese Guy or Run Normal Guy Run, because Simon Pegg really is not that fat in this movie. But he plays Dennis, who's a clueless and slightly overweight guy who left his pregnant fiancée 5 years earlier. Every day, Dennis tries to persuade the woman that he loves to accept him back into his life, but every day he fails, the woman being played by Tandy Newton. When he discovers that Libby has found a partner in the form of an American named Whit, played by Hank Azaria, frustration grows, and Dennis vows that for once in his life, he will finish something. That something ends up being a Nike River Run in London, where with the help of his friends by his side, he begins to train for the marathon that he has to finish. So, kind of a really lackluster plot overall, but I think what really makes this movie kind of unique is the fact that it stars Simon Pegg, who's coming off of, Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. The co-writer of this is Michael Ian Black, who you know from the State, and also was one of the people on Stella, that show on Comedy Central with David Wayne. And it's directed by Ross from Friends. David Schwimmer directed this movie, and just weird pieces coming together with this film overall, and it makes for a film that has some potential to it, but it never really fully lives up to it. I can't really say it's a bad movie per se. Far from it. I think it's a competently made film, but it definitely feels like a film that we've seen done to death before so many times in the past. It feels like there's so much more that could have been done with this, like to give this a little bit of an edge to it. And it's not that the people in here can't do it. It's just the fact that it feels like they're kind of half-assing it and just kind of making sure they make a safe and marketable film. And it's not that, like I said, it's not it's a bad movie. It's just the fact that it's just kind of like, I can't really say it's a great film, but I can't really say it's a bad film either. It's just kind of in the middle. Sometimes you get a really good laugh here and there, but other than that, though, it's a very split film. But I'm more leaning towards it being somewhat of a positive movie overall. It's one I would say, like, if you want to see Ross from Friends direct a movie and actually do kind of a decent job with it, here you go. This is it right there, and it's got one of the guys from the State, and also features Sean from Shaun of the Dead. So, with that said, I'd say check it out. I don't think you're going to want to watch it again after a second time, but I'm glad I saw it the first time around. And so, with all of that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and the next time we meet, we'll take a look at 6 movies to kick off the month of April, starting off with Gerard Butler and Jodie Foster, and Abigail Breslin starring in the family adventure Nim's Island, George Clooney following up his directorial success with Good Night and Good Luck with a screwball period piece football comedy with John Krasinski, Leatherheads. We also have the horror film The Ruins, produced by Ben Stiller. We also have the Martin Scorsese Rolling Stones documentary Shine a Light. Aaron Eckhart, Jessica Alba, and Elizabeth Banks in Meet Bill. And probably one of my favorite underrated comedies that came out around this time period. Daniel Waters' follow-up to Heathers, Sex and Death 101, with Simon Pegg and Winona Ryder among the cast in it. We'll take a look at those 6 movies. That'll be coming up tomorrow on the show. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, notification button, and the bell. That's when you get updates on when new videos come out. And we do post new videos here every day. So with all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time. And until then, as always, take care.